Hey everyone, and welcome to 1.21 Overload. I am Peter, that is Matt, and we talk about movies on this show. This is our monthly movie show in which we put two movies up for vote for our patrons at patreon.com/mailfuzztv. I pick a movie I love, Matt picks a movie he loves, and our patrons vote against which one we'll do. And the winner for this month was Speed, which beat out Twister, which was a bit of a joke in and of itself, because Matt picked Twister, and then I thought it'd be funny to pick a movie by the same director. And Speed won, so I won technically. It feels like a hollow victory though, because they're pretty even in terms of what they were, in terms of what the movies are.
Hmm?
So yeah, we're gonna talk about Speed, and I guess we'll start spoiler free. If you've not seen Speed, you can get the spoiler free section, and then we'll warn you in the middle before we go into spoilers. But that's what we're gonna do. What is Speed? Speed is a movie about a bomb in a bus. Once the bus goes over 50 miles per hour. The bomb is armed. If it drops below 50 miles an hour after that, the bomb will blow up. And Dennis Hopper is chewing scenery. Keanu Reeves is being chewed by the scenery, and Sandra Bullock is somewhere in the middle.
Hey, she's really good given what she has to do, which is just be stressed out and drive a bus.
Oh sure, yeah, no, I mean honestly, even like you can make fun of Keanu Reeves' delivery of some stuff in this, but the dude has charisma.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. Even if he's being really wooden in a lot of his dialogue, and there is some pretty wooden takes in this, this got charisma. There's a reason why he's stuck around. And not just because he's a really nice guy, apparently. You always hear that. You always hear Keanu's a really nice dude. And then Dennis Hopper's just been the crazy villain. This is probably where I discovered Dennis Hopper, because it wasn't like I was watching. I mean, sure, it's not that weird for me to be watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 at an early age, but I didn't watch it that early an age. Whereas Speed I grew up watching from, I was 5 when this movie came out.
See, and I knew Dennis Hopper from Waterworld.
Joke's on you.
Yeah. Although he was arguably more crazy in Waterworld than in Speed. And he's pretty damn crazy in Speed. So
I love some of his little delivery tics that he's got in this. He has a few moments where he'll just do like a little noise, he'll be like like he'll do like a little noise like that, or when he's watching the news report and the news reporter says there's people on a bus and they're at the whim of a madman. He's like, whim of a madman. I like that. And it's like, who's he talking to? He's not talking to anyone.
Well, he likes to set up elaborate death traps to try to get money out of people. So he's I think him talking to himself is the least of his issues, So,
okay, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
I mean, I think it would have been arguably worse if they gave him a pet he was talking to, like they did in Iron Man 2 for Mickey Rourke.
Oh, right,
he had the parrot, So him just talking to himself all in, saying, like, drives the character home more to me.
What's funny about it though is that when it cuts to those scenes where it's just him in his lair, where whilst everything's going on and he's just got his monitors set up and he's like controlling things.
Yep.
Every time it does it, it doesn't feel like a character in a movie. It just feels like we're cutting to Dennis Hopper's den, and Dennis Hopper's being a crazy man, and that's what it feels like. And it's not a complaint.
Rest his soul. He passed away years and years ago now. I had heard on a film podcast, I can't remember which one, but basically Dennis Hopper got banned from Australia because he was there to shoot a movie and partied way too hard. So once the movie was finished and he was out of the country, they're like, yeah, you can't come back here anymore. Which just made me think he was yelling diplomatic immunity like in Lethal Weapon 2. So they're just like,
diplomatic immunity, man.
So I don't know if that story's true. The film podcast that I listened to it on seemed to think it was true. So, yeah, that's just Dennis Hopper. So I totally buy that we just cut to his lair. Like, that wasn't even set dressing. That was his actual house.
Yeah. Yeah. He died in 2010. Because you said years and years ago, and I'm like, it's not been that long, has it? And
8 years.
8 years, yeah. I don't know if I'd call that years. I mean, it is technically years and years ago because it's 8 years. But like, you know what I mean? Years and years sounds like decades to me. But that's
I didn't remember if it was 2004 or if it was 2010. Because either or, feels right. So.
Oh sure. But then we would have missed out on some of his later career. What did he do in the 2000s? I suppose I should say the 2020s, 20 somethings.
He's in He's so transformative. I just remembered he was in Blue Velvet,
Oh yeah, Blue Velvet's one of his biggest
which
roles.
kicked off this series of shows.
That's right. Yeah, that was the first thing we ever did on Overload. Yeah, he was in
Yeah.
Land of the Dead. I think that was the one thing I saw him in the
Okay.
2000s. Not a great movie. Not his fault, admittedly, but
No,
not
that
good.
was the Romero one.
Yeah, the fourth Romero one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What was the Romero one? I know we're going off track, but it was where they were making a movie about zombies, and then there were zombies,
I believe that
like for
was.
real.
I never saw it, but I believe that was one after that. That was called Diary of the Dead.
Diary. Okay.
I think that was
I
next.
know that all the Romero ones in of the Dead, so I just can't,
Because there was
you
a.
know.
He did another one. He did a sixth one, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that was called. Damn, I can't
But
remember.
yeah.
Jeez.
But yeah.
Yeah. So no. So obviously this is interesting. We both picked movies that were obviously action movies from our childhood. So I feel like the discussion in this one is going to be a little bit different to some of them, because some of them, it's just, if it's a movie like Blue Velvet or whatever, we'll analyze it and we'll interpret it and we'll talk about what it means. Or if it's a movie that you've picked that I think is garbage, we'll sit and debate
Yeah.
the critiques of it and why is it good, why is
Right.
it bad. This is a funny one because we both grew up with this, so despite any faults that we will probably point out, and we will point out a few of them at least, this is probably going to be more of a gushing nostalgia trip than anything else.
Yeah, yeah. So I hadn't seen this movie probably since the 90s,
Hmm.
so even though it's constantly on cable, it's like, oh, I've seen Speed before. I never feel the need to go back. So watching it as an adult, I was surprised how actually solid of an action movie this is. Like, I feel this is what Skyscraper was trying to be, and they just completely missed, because the story and whatnot is, you described it in a sentence.
Yeah.
Bomb on bus, bomb explodes if it goes too slow, you know? And it's simple, and that drives the story. So I wonder why it's so hard now to make something as simple and as good, you know?
I feel like, yeah, that's an honest question. I feel like, yeah, simple action movies that are just well made don't really happen that much anymore. The few that do would be like Mad Max Fury Road, something
Yeah.
like
And
Dread, you know.
that was super simple. Both of those are really simple. I mean, Dread's basically the raid, but with a pop culture character. You got to get to
Yeah,
the top of this building.
yeah.
You're gonna fight your way through.
To its credit, though, they were both been made around the same time. It's not
Right.
like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I feel like the raid has more, like raids at like Die Hard status. Although they're both basically Die Hard. They're stuck in a building, and but again, there's another one, Die Hard. That was from the 80s, but yeah, I don't feel like we have these anymore. And when they try, they just swing and miss. Because I would never say like John Wick is simple, because there's a whole world
yeah.
built
No, I
within
wouldn't put John
John
Wick in
Wick.
the same category as like action movies I
Yeah.
like from the 80s and 90s. The action movies from the 80s and 90s, and they're simple enough, and I think they work because it's not that they take themselves too seriously, because they don't. In fact, they fail when they take themselves
Yeah.
too seriously. I think they work is because they don't have any like sense of irony. Like they're having fun. They know they're making a goofy movie, but they still kind of just play it straight regardless. Whereas now I feel like you have to, constantly wink at the audience that yeah, we know it's a dumb action movie, we're going with it, or whatever. Now,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, sure, there's a lot of things in this movie especially where we can point at and go, okay, here's where the rules of physics are not obeyed. Here's where the rules of
Oh,
anything are not
for sure.
obeyed.
But they're never one to point and laugh at that. There's absolute sincerity in the filmmaking.
Yeah,
So
because the classic plot hole everyone always likes to point out with Speed, and it's a fair plot hole to point out. I'm not a big plot hole guy. I don't really give a shit about plot
no,
holes. If you're going to argue me that a movie's not good because of a plot hole, I'll probably just ignore you because I don't care. Because the attitude they had when they were making this movie and other movies like it is that, well, no, but that plot hole lets the movie happen and the movie's fun, so let's just do it. And
right,
that's a fine attitude
exactly.
to have. But the big plot hole they always point out is that when he's chasing after the bus, he's been told by Dennis Hopper that once the bus hits 50, that's when it's armed. And there's a point where he's trying to catch up to the bus, where he's running on foot and he's keeping up with it. And he's trying to bang in the door, say, hey, stop the bus, stop the bus. Yes, if he thought clearly at that moment, he could pull out his gun, shoot the tires, and it would never get to 50. And that'd be it.
Right,
Crisis over.
right.
No,
But like you said,
admittedly
then
though,
there's no movie.
and then there's no movie. And then admittedly on top of that, Dennis Hopper would then just blow up the bus there and then, probably.
Right.
So I mean,
Right,
there is
because
actually,
he's watching.
yeah,
We
yeah.
we know that through the footage, which I think is hilarious when you look back on it. And this was right after, either right before or right after OJ. Which
Mm.
was that whole sensationalized, police copters,
Yeah, it's around that time.
following stuff. So,
Yeah,
so it fits in that time period too.
I have a question, Matt. Do you
Yeah.
know why the bus number is in giant numbers on top of the bus on the roof? Because
I don't.
I can't fathom what the purpose of that beyond a helicopter getting a shot off it. Because if you're
Yeah.
getting a bus, you're not seeing the roof of the bus.
No. That said, it is Los Angeles, and there is a lot of police chases. There's been numerous times we've gone down there and have had to pull over on the freeway because of high-speed chase. So it wouldn't, it's not out of the realm of possibility that
Sure.
most buses in LA have
Sure.
their numbers on it. That said, I've never looked on top of a bus.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
I don't know.
you never climb up and go. For all we know, that doesn't happen at all, and it's just the bus in the movie. But no one ever sees the roof of a bus, so who's going to argue it? It's fine. What I will
Exactly.
argue is how many compartments and trapdoors this bus has to get under the bus. This is bullshit.
Lord.
This is straight up bullshit.
It's good. Like, I understand if Hopper had set bombs in, and then he starts exploding them, as threats, and it creates like a trapdoor. But the fact, like,
Because it's not just because
the
there's one.
scene where he's on the rollerboard
Oh yeah.
and gets up underneath it. And whatnot.
Because there's one near the front of the bus, which the driver tells me about early on, and I'm like, okay, this feels like bullshit, but I'll accept one trap door, one hatch to access underneath the bus. But when he's done that bit later on, where he's under it on the little trolley, and they have to pull him in, they pull open this giant, it's like a 4 foot long hatch in the middle of the floor of the bus to pull him in.
It's like in a military movie where they're all jumping out of the back of the plane.
Yeah.
And there's that, like, the bottom part of the hatch creates like a ramp. There's a full on ramp built into this bus.
Yeah, there's a lot of ridiculous little things like that you just, again, you accept it because you're having too much, because the plot is so simple, and it's such it's an event movie in the sense that it's constantly dealing with events. Okay, there's a bomb on the bus, they got on the bus, oh shit, the driver's been shot, oh shit, now Sandra Bullock has to drive the bus, okay, now we have to deal with traffic, now we have to deal with people on the road, now we have to deal with the fact that the road we're on is not finished. Like, it's just constantly upping the ante, and like, okay, here's another obstacle, here's an obstacle, here's an obstacle, how do you... do you know what it reminds me of, actually? It's a lot like something like The Martian. This is a weird comparison to make, but it's like that, and all it is solving problems that keep popping up.
Okay. So who wrote The Martian?
Drew Goddard.
All right. And where did he come from?
Well, I mean, I don't know what town he comes from, but he did work on the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
There you go. Do you know who Ghost wrote Speed?
I feel like I'm about to get a Joss Whedon reference here.
You are, because it was Joss Whedon. He punched up the script. Because when the guy who wrote it, and I don't have it in front of me, but when the writer, it was a little bit too serious and a little bit too, like, police procedurally. And so Joss, who's, still making his way, writing scripts on spec and whatnot, he punched it up and changed a lot of the stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if that constant upping of the stakes was added by him.
Do you know what? I'm going to assume that he didn't even change the events. I'm going to assume that his changes were character and dialogue based, and I'm going to say right now, Pop Quiz Hot Shot was probably him.
It was. I did, because I read after the movie finished, he added a lot of that. But
Pop Quiz.
I thought it was funny that when you bring up The Martian, and that was written by Goddard, who he was, I don't want to say disciple, but he worked with Whedon.
Yeah, because he was in the later seasons, but he wasn't there for the first like 3 or 4 seasons. Yeah. He came in at like 5 or 6. Goddard. But so here's the thing about the dialogue, though. If we're talking about it, there are lots of lines that fall flat, and some of it I think is the delivery. It's kind of that thing. People always like to bring up how awful that line from X-Men is. What happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? The same thing as everything else. That is an awful line in that movie, but at the same time, I can see that line on page, and I can think of how it would be delivered in a Joss Whedon directed thing, and I can see that line working with the right attitude. And I feel like that's the same thing with a few lines in this, where a lot of them work because you've got these actors who have charisma to pull them off. Jeff Daniels, he's good in here as well. He's the partner. But there's lines that fall apart. In fact, one of my least favourite lines of dialogue in any movie are in this film. It's when he's looking at the bomb under the bus for the first time, and he's got Alan Ruck, who's an actor who's on Spin City. He was recently on the Exorcist TV show. You know, he's done a bunch of stuff.
He's Cameron from Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
of course, that's where you know him from. Yeah.
Yeah. Funnily enough, he was in Twister. He's one of the storm chasers.
Yeah. So clearly, Jan de Bont, who directed this, liked working with him because he brought him back. Yep. But so he's looking at the bomb, and there's a decoy one. Then he looks underneath and he sees the proper full bomb, and he's like, you know, F me. And he's like, oh, you know, oh darn. It's a funny moment. Again, that's a Joss Whedon joke, but he hands the phone back and he's like, Harry, there's enough C4 in this thing to blow a hole in the world. That line is atrocious. I hate that line. Who would say that? Who would say blow a hole in the world?
Yeah, that's...
I hate that line of dialogue. And that's the thing, I could see that being a Whedon line, but like the way Whedon would have intended it might have been a bit different than the way Keanu...
Yeah, the whole delivery would have been different. Same, because you bring up that storm line, and just the way that Halle Berry delivers it just doesn't fit. It doesn't even fit the X-Men movie. No. You know what I mean? So yeah, I definitely get that.
Yeah, but no,
because he could have said blow a hole in a building or whatever, but the world, that's just for an LA cop to say. It's a little bit weird.
Yeah, it just felt a bit off, felt a bit iffy. But yeah, but there's a lot of fun dialogue though. Everyone, you know, references the pop quiz stuff. Everyone references all the banter between Keanu and Daniels as they're, you know, doing all the elevator stuff at the start. And that's one of the things that I think people forget about this movie is how segmented it is. The bus part's the big middle section, but you've got a whole you've got a whole almost short movie about an elevator hostage crisis in the opening, which is like a good 25 minutes long. And that stuff's mostly pretty fun because they actually have like I remember watching the extras on the DVD. They had like a miniature elevator shaft. That's the opening titles as they're coming up as it's going down the elevator shaft. That's a miniature they're going down.
That's really cool.
And that's pretty neat. In fact, speaking about the last time you saw this, I saw this a bit more because this was like the 4th or 5th DVD I ever bought. I got this and Predator. And they were both like 2-disc special editions. This was I was just becoming obsessed with extras because that was just like a new thing at the time. And I remember watching all the extras and listening to the commentaries. Director's commentary sucked, but the writer and producer commentary, and I don't believe they ever mentioned Whedon on that track. He just talked about coming up with the idea for the bus and all the rest of it. But I remember that being an enjoyable enough listen. But I remember like getting that early. I mean, I've got the Blu-ray now, obviously, because you know times have changed. But nostalgia. If you know about nostalgia, I have nostalgia for that 2-disc DVD that you know, back when I was in my early teens and I only had like 20 DVDs, so I'd be rewatching the same stuff like, you know, over and over.
Yeah, the pre-streaming days.
Yeah,
like you had what you had. That's why I watched Dude, Where's My Car so many times when I was a teenager, because I had that on DVD. But yeah, oh man, one of our first DVDs was Three Kings, David O. Russell, the George Clooney one, where famously they got into a fight on set, and Clooney punched him in the face. So I just remember hearing about that at the time and buying the movie based off of that. Hadn't seen it, ended up liking it a lot. So
I hope that moment was in the outtakes.
I hope so too. I never actually. I'll have to go look.
Yeah, Joe else is in this movie. We mentioned Alan Ruck in a minor role. The lieutenant McMahon. He's played by Joe Martin, who you might recognise from Terminator 2, who was Miles Dyson. That's him. Fast talking in this, but there he is. It's good stuff. So they have a cast that's, you know, mostly charismatic and likable. Not necessarily always the greatest actor in the world. Like I said, Keanu's very wooden at times. I think, you know, Hopper is not an amazing actor per se, but he chews scenery like a madman, and it's beautiful to watch. He's super into it.
I'm trying to find his comparison. It's hard to compare anybody to him, but he always makes something better. Like even Waterworld, where that movie is almost unintelligible at times, but it's never on Hopper. You're just like, oh, he's a crazy dude that rides a jet ski, you know?
Actually, one of my favorite moments from Hopper right at the start of the movie is, you know, he's in the elevator shaft and he's pretending to be a maintenance worker, and the security guard comes in and questions why he's there, and he stabs him in the ear with a screwdriver. Right after he stabs him, he smirks immediately and goes, "Nothing personal." as he goes down, and I'm like, nothing prompted that line. He just said it. He just went for it.
Uh-huh.
Wouldn't it shock me if that was just an ad lib? Like Hopper's like, I'm adding dialogue in, damn it. I'll do what I please.
Oh, that crazy man.
It's great stuff. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff earlier on where you could argue that like Jack, Keanu's character, keeps like not telling his commanding officer what he's doing. Now the first thing is fine because they think they're being sneaky and like hooking up the elevator so it won't fall. But when they suspect that he's in the building, when they realize that Hopper might actually be in the building, which is a good bit of deduction, it frustrates me that he doesn't actually call his superior officer and say, hey, we think he's in the building, we're going for him. Instead, they're just confused when they hear gunshots and they're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But actually, speaking of lines, I love Jeff Daniels' line, because obviously, Keanu shoots him when he's the hostage. Pop quiz, what do you do? Got a hostage, shoot the hostage. When they're at the ceremony getting their medals, Jeff Daniels, when they're waiting to get their award, Jeff Daniels just sort of leans over and goes, they're giving you a award for shooting me, you little prick. That line, I love
so
that line.
Good.
Yeah.
It's just because it's the way that Daniels delivers it, just like through his teeth, and yeah, it's really good. I forgot he was in this. Like I remember as a kid knowing that's the guy from Dumb and Dumber in this, but watching it as an adult, I totally forgot. So it was good to see him there. Like you don't see him in these types of movies anymore. He's much more like serious style stuff.
I'd recommend, actually, if you haven't watched it, to watch the limited series that was on Netflix last year, Godless. So Western, he's the villain.
Yeah?
Very good. So it's 7 episodes. It's very cinematic. It's just like this big budget Western.
Good.
I'd recommend it. A lot of familiar faces in that, actually, but no, he's very good. If anything, so I will just give the spoiler warning here just so that we can talk freely.
Yeah.
So full spoilers for Speed. But one of the things that I would complain about a little bit actually with his character is that I feel like his death feels oddly kind of anticlimactic. Like it's treated obviously. I like how it affects Keanu's character. When he gets angry when he finds out that his best friend and partner's dead. But
blow it up.
But in the opening of the movie, that opening 25 minutes, it feels like the second main character, and then he kind of becomes just the guy that's on the phone for a lot of it, and then he doesn't even survive. And it's like over the course of the movie, he feels less and less important to me. It's weird, and it kind of bums me out a little bit.
Yeah, so yes, in the original script, he was meant to be the villain, and then they changed that because they're like, oh, well, that's kind of weird. So that's the reason that the beginning part. He's so in the thick of it, and then he kind of gets relegated to desk duty, because he's been shot and whatnot, and then he still leads the raid, I guess you can call it, to try to capture Hopper in his lair. But of course, I was booby trapped and whatnot. But yeah, Harry was meant to be one of the villains, so I don't know if he's supposed to be working with Dennis Hopper or what.
That's interesting.
They changed that.
I'm glad he isn't. I actually like what is, but because they set up at the start the whole thing about retirement and the gold watch, and he's being kind of cynical about it. And I like the idea that Hopper's listening into what's happening, so he hears this, and that's kind of what prompts the idea of using the retirement watch. It's a little bit movie convenient that this guy's entire motivation is that he was retired forcibly after he lost his thumb in like a small detonation. That his entire motivation is about being cynical and being vengeful over the state for not paying him his due. So because he's asking for a very specific amount of ransom. He's asking for $3.7 million, which in his estimate is what he's owed for what he's done for the country, for the force. I said the state. He's not actually. He was in Atlanta when he was a police officer in the bomb squad, but same difference.
He's taking it out because he talks about when he blows up his own house. He's like, oh, you mean that gift? When I was useless to them, and it's all he's angry like they did away with him because he was a broken man, but clearly he's at least really good at building bombs. So you think they could have kept him on to make the decoy stuff,
Yeah, actually, I think what I like the idea that he susses out that whoever this is, whoever Hopper is, he's probably an ex-cop or an ex-bomb squad guy.
Yeah.
Because as he points out that typically someone who's into making bombs falls in love with a specific type, and they'll stick to that type. Whereas he's all over the place. He's building different types. He knows how to do different things with them. And that was a nice point.
Well, because Well, I was gonna say, once you learn how to build a bomb one way, it's high stakes. So it's like, yeah, I know this one way. I'm gonna keep doing this one way so I don't blow myself up.
Yeah.
You know.
And obviously we're spending a lot of time talking about his motivation, which ultimately doesn't matter that much because it's not that type of movie. As people would say, there's movies that are about character dramas, and then there's movies that are about the plot, and the characters are just there because they need to have characters in it. That's one of these movies where the characters are kind of thin. They have just enough charisma and enough witty banter here or there that just makes them likable, including the villain in a weird way. But like you're not necessarily, it's like, I mean, because it's one of those things where at the end of the movie, like Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock kiss, right? And they're joking about how relationships that start under stress like this, don't end well. And watching it now, it's like, man, this feels like a really tacked on romance. They did not need to have them kiss at the end of the movie. Like there is like no bit. There's some camaraderie that builds over the course of it because he makes sure she's okay, and then she makes, when he loses it, when after Harry dies, she actually says, hey, stay with us, and she gives him a pep talk. So it's kind of like they're bonding a little bit, and that is there. But the actual romance just kind of comes up, when at the end of the bus section. It doesn't really feel.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's one of these things where it's fine if a romance is a core part of your plot or a core part of your premise, but here it feels like the romance is just this tacked on extra thing because you've got a guy and a girl as the leads, they have to kiss by the end. Not to say that it's that bad or it's just that cringeworthy as far as these examples go. It just feels unnecessary and kind of tacked on.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but yeah. So, what's your favorite bus stuff in this? Your bus moments, the jump, the ridiculous jump where they actually go up a ramp, but there's no ramp.
Jump. No, weirdly, it's where you find out like they can't leave because somehow he's watching, and he, that lady who sits next to Sandra Bullock every day on the bus, tries to leave. And it's where the stakes really get raised for Keanu, because this lady tries to leave, the bus door gets blown open, she ends up on the freeway, and he starts taking it personally. I think that's really good for all the characters involved, because now Sandra Bullock, I think she's driving by that point.
Yeah, she is. Because that was after the driver gets off.
Right.
She's been driving for a while.
Because the driver gets shot. Because there's a guy on the bus that thinks Keanu's there for him, because he's like a small-time crook, and there ends up being like this standoff, and the gun goes off, and the driver gets hit, and so she has to take over. But yeah, because she's driving, and then Alan Ruck, who's a tourist, starts freaking out a little bit more because this lady just got killed. And Keanu's taking it personal. So
yeah, there's some small touches actually in terms of the passengers, like Alan Ruck's character, and then the big guy Ortiz. He's like constantly annoyed by Alan Ruck that he's this weird tourist who keeps making these stupid jokes or stupid comments. Like one of the bits I laugh at is they eventually end up at the airport, and he gets annoyed. He's like, "Oh, we're at the airport," and Ortiz is like, "Yeah, so." He's like, I already saw the airport. And Ortiz just has this it almost looks right at the camera as he turns round and just like, Jesus, this guy. But it's a nice little build up because at the end when they're all escaping the bus, Alan Ruck almost dies. Ortiz is the one who grabs him and he hugs him. But it's simple stuff like that, but there's nice little bits where a couple of pairs of characters on the bus kind of grow a little bit to,
Yeah.
Gives it just a little bit of heart.
This experience. Yeah, they're all going through this experience together. And by the end of it, they've created like a group bond because they survived it.
Yeah, but I think that one's notable
because
that one kind of sets it up and then it pays it off by the end when they hug.
Yeah.
And it's nice. I feel like that's probably another thing that Joss Whedon probably added was the little bits of heart and the characters that are on the bus. Because obviously
go ahead.
I was just gonna say you can see there's a ton of the characters where. You don't really get to know them. There's half the bus is just background characters, but there's a good 6 or 8 or whatever that you kind of get to know a little bit, just enough to know where they are, who they are, what their role is in terms of the group, and so on.
Yeah, because in a lesser movie, Alan Rick's character would have been this really whiny dude that you kind of want to see get blown up, but you never do. You're just like, oh, he's just like, this is his worst vacation ever, So it's a little bit more understandable. and he's holding it together better than I would in that situation. So, but yeah, you appreciate that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I also like that when they think Keanu's abandoned them because he arranges that he can leave the bus to negotiate for the money, and and some of them think he's abandoned them. He's like, oh, he's saved his own skin, and of course Bullock points out that hey, he didn't have to get on the bus in the first place. Like he chose to do that.
Right.
But when they see him go on the trolley to go under the bus, they're like, this guy's insane. Like they're just like, oh no, this guy's a complete nut job. Um,
Oh,
so
it's such a
obviously,
good scene though too,
oh no, it
because
is.
the cable, and he's launching under, and he's oh man, Jan de Bont did a good job. I think there's a lot of really well directed scenes throughout this movie.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. He was the DOP on Die Hard, funnily enough.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
now obviously he's directing movies at this point.
Hmm.
And I think what it does really well is, despite the fact that it adds a lot of little things to the bus to make all these things work, it does really inventively make use of a bus in a lot of different ways. So there's a lot of different
It
things.
does.
Actually, I love the bus that picks. See when they're getting off the bus just before it blows up.
Yep.
I love the ridiculously big wide bus that comes to get them. It's got doors at the front of the bus in the middle.
Yeah.
It's this super wide, but it's
Yeah.
weird. It's this weird like
Yeah.
supersized bus. I don't even know what the purpose of it is, but it stuck out to
Yeah.
me. What can I say? So no, that's good. But so here's the thing. Here's a hang up that I know a lot of people have, and I think it's a fair complaint. Is that it's kind of weird that after the bus section ends, there's a whole other act still to go with the train section, and it feels a little bit almost like, oh shit, we've just been through so much, and now we're doing a whole other setup. We're doing a whole other, you know.
Yeah.
And I think there was
I liked it though. Watching it this time, I like that it ramps it up, and now it's because the movie's just called Speed. It's not Bus Bomb. So
that's just true.
I feel like it bookends it because it starts out with the elevator, goes to the bus, ends with the train. So I feel like there's just something thematically that fits when they get to that point.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think it is the weakest part of the movie for a couple of reasons. I think one, there is zero reason why Sandra Bullock's character should be there at all, because she's there in the ambulance to get kidnapped, and I'm like, why is she even there? Why did she tag along to this sting?
Right.
Like, come on now,
Right.
crazy. But fair enough. And then the actual like fight, on top of the train, some of the dialogue. I think this is the movie. It's its most generic. It's almost like, okay, you had this really fun couple of concepts for most of the movie, and then this final act, we just had to turn it into kind of a generic ending where they're in this kind of, like final fight with the bad guy. I thought the moment where Keanu Reeves says, they can't stop the train, the track's unfinished. Which, by the way, given that we already had the highway unfinished earlier on, this makes me roll my eyes a little bit that they use this again. I'm like, you just had a highway that wasn't finished. You can't have a train track that's not finished now too. But
Or if they were going to do that, have had Dennis Hopper blow a hole in it.
oh yeah, sure.
He's that dangerous or whatever. Do something different. Just have it unfinished.
Yeah, but
it's
no,
lazy.
and then after he realizes this, and they can't get Sandra Bullock's handcuffs off, she's trapped on the train, and he's going to stay with her. His plan is to like, oh, there's a clearing up ahead. We're going to speed it up, and it felt like that really cringe-worthy moment where they wanted to get the title of the movie in there. We're going to speed it up, and the sad part is there was a really funny version of this earlier in the movie where she's like, hey, I should tell you since you're a cop, since I'm driving the bus. I'm only taking the bus because I got my license revoked. And he's like, why? It's like,
For what?
For speeding. And it's this funny little moment. It's like, that'll work. It's fine. But that was a funny little exchange that got the title in. Whereas this just kind of felt like, that was forced. That was forced.
Yeah, big time.
So, yeah. So, because of those reasons, and I think the other line that really bugs me there as well is I'll have a good cheesy action one-liner, but I feel like after Hopper gets decapitated and Sandra Bullock says, oh, what happened to him? He's like, oh, he lost his head. Weak sauce. Weak sauce. That said, I will stick up for I'm taller after, because just before he dies, Dennis Hopper says, I'm so much smarter than you, and then he gets his head cut off, and he's like, well, I'm taller.
Well, I'm tall. Yeah. That's a Keanu line. Like, he can pull that off.
Yeah. I'll stick up for that one. But he lost his head. Weak sauce.
Yeah. You know what's weird, though, is I haven't seen Point Break forever. This made me want to rewatch Point Break. So
Do you know, it's funny, it doesn't make me want to watch that. It makes me want to watch the other two movies that the same writer-producer team did. Because they went on to do two other movies that were kind of also high concept. One was Broken Arrow, which was Christian Slater and John Travolta.
Story about that after you tell me what the other one is.
Yeah. And then the other one is Hard Rain, which is Christian Slater and Morgan Freeman, and it's a town that's flooded.
Yeah,
and
I've seen both of those.
Yeah, both of those are fun movies. They're not as good as Speed, but they're both fun for what they are.
No. Yeah. So Broken Arrow, I went on a cruise with my dad when that movie was out. So that would be 96. And the week we were on the cruise, it was the only movie that was showing. So I watched Broken Arrow probably 19 times over the course of that week, just in pieces. So yeah, that one, hoo boy.
Do you know what's funny?
I've seen Broken Arrow way too many times.
Is that I enjoy Broken Arrow. I enjoy Heavy Rain or Hard Rain. Heavy Rain is a video game. Hard Rain, probably a little bit more than Broken Arrow. But what's funny is that I didn't see Broken Arrow till a bit later. Like, I was still young. I was still like 12 or something like that. But by that point, I'd already seen, the Scream movies, the first three Scream movies. And the score from Broken Arrow, which is Hans Zimmer's score, is actually used in Scream 2 for Dewey's theme. So when you go back and watch Broken Arrow and you associate that music with Dewey, and you go back to watch Broken Arrow and it's John Travolta's theme when he's maybe this like slick badass, it's like, oh, this is weird. Right. This is weird. He didn't. Oh. So
I'm also looking up what the writer did, and he produced The Americans and created Justified.
Those are well regarded shows.
The pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's pretty good. I mean, I'm glad that they brought in Whedon to make Speed, a little bit more charactery, a little
because I feel like
levity.
Speed's one where you want a bit of levity in there. And again, as much as we started this by saying that movies these days go too far with trying to be tongue in cheek, I think you do want a little bit of there's a sincerity to Speed that I feel like we've lost when it comes to movies like this.
Yep. Definitely.
But I watched Brawl in Cell Block 99 last week, and that was great. Now that didn't have levity. That reminded me more of a 70s action movie than a 90s action movie. But I'd highly recommend it.
It's very grindhouse from what I've heard. It's very like they ruin the lo-fi effects.
Oh yeah,
and whatnot.
The violence in that movie. It's not violent often, but when it gets violent, it gets pretty damn violent.
And same guy that did Bone Tomahawk, and I would say the same about Bone Tomahawk. So that's his thing.
After two movies, I am on board for whatever that director does. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, I read the plot synopsis of Cell Block, and I don't think I can handle it. So it's hooey.
I think you'd be fine, to be honest. I don't think it'd be that bad on you. It's funny. I said actually the director here is Jan de Bont. After Speed, he did Twister, which was also pretty enjoyable and successful. After that, though, it went really downhill because Speed 2 is garbage. The Haunting remake is garbage. And I never saw the second Tomb Raider movie with Angelina Jolie, but I'm fairly certain it was garbage.
Gerard Butler's in it, so make that of what you will.
In 2003?
Yeah.
He was already
a thing. Fatal Life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the first time. He's the heavy in that, I want to say.
I didn't know he existed until like 2010.
He just emerged as a gritty looking Scotsman in 2010?
Yeah, that's weird. I didn't know he was around at that time. He was the second on the cast list. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I've seen that one once. I haven't seen it since.
I suppose I should have. He's in 300. He's the main guy in 300. I suppose I should have. Known him from that in 2006, but still. Still. Fair enough. Okay. He's from the same town as me, by the way, just for anyone curious.
And I don't want to make it people think like I'm crapping on Gerard Butler, but he doesn't have the best agent or manager because he's in a lot of bad things, but he's usually good in them. It's just
Gerard Butler's frustrating to me because he's trying to be the modern equivalent of your Arnie or Stallone or your Van Damme, right? He's trying to be that. And I think the closest he's been was probably the Olympus and London Has Fallen movies, right? But even
Yep.
those feel like they're just kind of pale imitators to the movies that I like growing up. And part of it could be nostalgia, part of it, could be whatever. But I do feel like, again, like, I don't know, they make the plot a bit too complex. And just not quite the right amount of charisma and charm. I think that's what's missing more than anything. Also,
and he has charisma and charm. So if anybody was gonna pop through, it'd be like Gerard Butler. Like I would expect him on The Rock, and they just keep whiffing. Like if anybody has charisma, it's Dwayne Johnson.
oh yeah, The Rock. This is the thing about The Rock. The Rock has oodles of charisma, and people like him, but he's in nothing but turd after turd for the most part.
Yep.
And it's a shame because I want to like Rampage. I want to like Skyscraper. I've not seen Skyscraper yet, but I want to like it. It seems like my kind of fun, stupid thing, but missed the mark.
Yeah,
missed the mark. It's a shame. But hey,
oh my God,
actually,
is there a third Fallen movie coming out?
there is. I believe there is.
Oh my
Yes.
God, there is. Oh my God, it's basically a remake of Air Force One.
Yeah. What's it called?
Angel Has Fallen.
The
Man.
The Fallen franchise. Actually, one thing I want to mention
Yeah.
about this movie is the music by Mark Mancina. I think it's a very good soundtrack. I think the opening theme in particular is very, very good. He went on to do the score for Con Air as well, which I think has got a fantastic electric guitar main theme. These are action movie scores that I miss having, where they just want it to sound cool, and I feel like now everything has they have to for some reason the main theme is dead. Outside of a few specific things, even superhero movies don't have enough main themes anymore, and it bugs the shit out of me because for something adventurous
I
like
do
this,
love the Avengers. Yeah, the Avengers theme is still pretty solid when it pops up.
it's okay. It's okay. It's not as great as it could be, but like. At least it is a main theme, as opposed to like a lot of the other Marvel movies where there isn't really one. But like, I miss this music. I miss music like this. I miss music like Con Air and even The Rock, which was Hans Zimmer. Like, I feel like these days everything has to just be this edgy soundtrack that's constantly trying to do tension. And it's like, no, if it's a movie that's fun and adventurous like this with these wisecracking characters, give me the cheesy heroic theme. I want it. Do it.
Well, so I looked up Mancina, and he's also done two of my favorite Disney movies, in Tarzan and Moana. And those are both vastly different. So this guy, like, there's actors that are chameleons. Mancina's almost like that for a composer, because he also did the first Bad Boys.
Oh yeah.
He did Twister, Con Air. You already said Training Day.
And notably, the first Bad Boys has a much better soundtrack than Bad Boys 2.
Yeah.
Which he did not do.
So yeah, wow, he's been doing it since the 80s. Did not even realize.
Yeah. I've not seen his name pop up in a long time though. Is he still working? Is he still doing stuff?
Yeah. The last thing that popped up was Moana. That was 2016.
Okay.
And I'm a big fan of that, but I also like the whole Polynesian vibe of the music. So he worked with Lin-Manuel Miranda, and then let me pull up the name because if I don't read it, I'll mess it up.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at his list now. He's done a lot of like animated stuff, and he did like 88 episodes of Criminal Minds. So he's been busy on stuff, but unfortunately, he's not been doing stuff that I've been getting to see, which is a shame.
Yeah. But no, like it was a really good score. I remember thinking that watching it, because since doing shows with you, I really noticed the score, because I'm like, oh, I better pay attention because Pete's gonna bring this up. So now I notice it more, and it's really good because we talked about that. Go watch our Predator review.
Oh yeah,
or the Predator. Actually, we talked about the score there too.
Actually, that's something I really miss as well, as opening titles where we get like an overture of the music, which this has. This has the you get all the different bits of the score. You get the tension, you get the din 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 din. You get that bit, and then you get the melodic sort of heroic theme, and you get all these things. It's like, okay, this is what I'm in for. This is all the different emotions I'm going to be feeling throughout the movie, and then it goes into the actual plot, and I like that a lot. But yeah, so no, Speed's a really fun movie. Like, yeah, there's things to poke holes at. There's if you want to get really nitpicky with it, you can. And you can certainly complain about some of the choices about the third act, and you can certainly complain about some wound deliveries from Keanu because they are there. But he does have a lot of charisma besides that. I will say, not having watched it in quite a while, I was noticing, because they were shooting a lot of stuff with a real bus, there's a lot of dialogue that's ADR'd, where they had to add it back in later, and it kind of sounds phony the way it's added back on. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell.
I never noticed that until I went to film school and we talked about ADR, and then you kind of notice it. Like, it's one of those things that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because like, it's when someone's head is turned and it's just the head movements don't seem to be matching what they're saying. So
yeah, I noticed that a lot. And the funny thing is even when it probably does match, it still feels like it probably doesn't. You just assume that they've changed it. You just assume it doesn't match.
Yep.
And that's just kind of an annoying thing that once you've noticed these things, you kind of pick up on. I think for me though, with this, the reason why I started thinking about it is because I was thinking, it looks like they're shooting a lot of this with a real bus as opposed to green screening it, and that means that the bus is being loud. The engines are on, and you can't record dialogue when the engines are on if something is too loud. So that means they had to ADR a lot of it, and you can tell, especially in Keanu's lines. Keanu lines especially, because they're a bit more wooden, feel very tacked on, but he's got a nice charisma with Jeff Daniels though, and the movie has absolutely nothing to say. It's just a fun action movie. Call it dumb if you wish, but I long for the days where this was a dumb action movie and not Transformers 5. I really long for these days. Yeah,
and see, that's why I don't feel like it's dumb, because I don't necessarily think you don't have to be smart. Like, if you're not smart, doesn't necessarily mean you're dumb. You're just average. And I feel now everything's so bipolar, where it's either like the greatest thing ever or the worst thing ever. And, or it's really smart or it's really dumb. Like Transformers 5, which our friend Jake in the group threw his body in front of me watching Age of Extinction because it popped up on one of the streaming. He's like, yeah, just don't do it, man. You're better off not.
Yeah,
and he loves Transformers.
It's one of these things where and when we talk about a movie being dumb, like, especially when I'm talking about a movie I like being dumb, it's not about you have to be dumb to enjoy it. It's not that at all. It's just you can enjoy something a bit sillier. It's not everything you watch. As much as I love watching my Seven Samurai from Akira Kurosawa, and I love talking about themes and artistry, sometimes I want to watch a nice simple action premise where there's a bomb in a bus and they're trying to save everyone. Like, easy.
Not to compare Jan de Bont to Nolan, right? Because that's a chasm between the two.
Yeah, that's not a fair fight.
But I'd much rather watch Twister and Speed than Dunkirk. And Dunkirk is super well made, but the fact, like, there's levity in character development and or even just characters you can connect to in the first two versus something like Dunkirk, which by all accounts, fantastically made piece of film.
This feels like an unfair fight, though. You picked the one Nolan movie I don't like, so like.
Well, I'm just because, of course, I'm not going to say I'd rather watch, or I'd even rather watch Speed and Twister over Interstellar. I'm just going to his two most recent.
Yeah, no, but I feel like you're minimizing your point here because you're picking the arguably the weaker Nolan movies. Where I feel like the point you're trying to make here is that sometimes you'd rather watch this more silly dumb film than a smart, even if the smarter film is much better. But I feel like you're hurting your point a little bit by picking the ones that are a bit more divisive.
I couldn't use Spielberg because there's plenty of Spielberg movies I'd rather not watch than these two. That are. I guess that would have been a better point. But I can't think of it off the top of my head because my top three, I'm going to want to watch over anything.
Although for the record, I do enjoy Interstellar. I'm not ragging on that movie, but a lot of people don't.
As do I. I much rather watch Interstellar than Dunkirk. But we both agreed that Dunkirk was this really well-made movie. We just wish we cared more about it. And I don't think you can say that about Speed because we care about what happens to that bus because of the people on that bus.
Yeah.
So. No, that's just kind of the point I'm trying to make. Like, as dumb as it is, I'd much rather not feel like I'm doing homework. I guess that's the ultimate point.
Yeah. And I wouldn't even say I care that much about the people on the bus. I care just enough and no more.
Yeah.
Just enough and no
Yeah,
more.
okay.
It's not like I'm watching I don't know, what was something I watched recently. It's not like it's not like I'm watching I don't know. I'm going to a TV show just because I can think of an example because I watched stuff in the last week. But it's like I'm watching Better Call Saul and I'm so invested in those characters. Like every single scene they're in, like every reaction they have, I am so like, on the edge of my seat to how they are going to feel about something. Like that's caring about characters. Speed. They're just likable characters who are in a predicament, and that's just enough to enjoy the ride, and that's all it is.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
That's okay. So I guess that's Speed. That's ended up in more of a discussion about how action movies have changed and how we don't have movies like this anymore. But
and I think that's okay sometimes because Speed is in the public consciousness. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we need to give the traditional style review. I actually like this more. I like when we can have discussions about stuff like this.
Well, I mean, I think it's because the movie's simple enough. Once you've talked about actors, direction, action, and then music and whatnot, you've talked about some critiques. You know, what is the more interesting discussion here? And the interesting discussion is why can't we have simple movies like this anymore? Really,
For real?
By all means, recommend some if there's some that you can think of in recent days, recent years that you think apply to what we're saying. Then, by all means, but I can't think of something dumb and. You know, like I love Con Air. Con Air is the epitome of gloriously dumb but charismatic as hell action movie. Nicolas Cage in that movie takes a bullet to the arm and doesn't even flinch. He's like the Terminator, but he wants to save his daughter, so he doesn't move. Damn it,
Cyrus the Virus.
Cyrus the Virus. You've got Buscemi. Steve Buscemi's in that movie.
He's got the whole world in his hands. Yeah, that movie's solid. That one I get. That one if that's on and I'm watching it, my wife gets up and leaves because she's just tired of Con Air. Because if that's on cable, but we're watching Con Air. So yeah, it's solid. Although being from Las Vegas, when they drive through that airport tunnel, that thing is like infinity long in that movie. It takes 45 seconds to drive through it in real life, and they keep going for like 5 minutes.
I don't think that's as bad though as the runway from the end. I think it's the 6th Fast and the Furious movie.
Yeah, that they did the math, and that runway would have been like 10 miles long.
Yeah.
So.
Because not only are they going down the cars in that movie with the plane are going at like 80 miles an hour. They're going at something silly, and it lasts forever. Yep. But yeah, and I guess Fast and the Furious wants to be movies like this. It wants to be like this generation's dumb action movie.
Yeah, they've gotten a little bit better at it from where they started, but because they're very self-aware and they're sincere at the same time. So but sometimes I feel like they just need to give it a rest because where are we going next? Space? They're gonna have space races.
They should. That's the logical place to go. So there you go. But yeah, I guess that's Speed. I guess we'll rate the film. We'll rate Speed.
Yeah.
So, at the whim of a madman, what are you giving Speed out of 10?
Yeah, whim of a madman. 8.5. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
8.5, man. I'm gonna go with a straight 8. I can't go, I think, any higher than that, but I have a lot of love for Speed. I grew up with it. It is filled to the brim of nostalgia. And I hope we look through kind of why it still kind of works, and does it work for a normal person, like someone who was born like 10, 15 years later and watches it when they're old enough to be critical of a movie. Like, if you show this to like a 15-year-old right now who's never heard of it, how do they feel about Speed? I don't know if it works, but hey ho. That is Speed though. So let us know what you thought of this one in the comments and stuff. There will be a new vote up. There's the vote for this month for Overload. I picked Flight of the Navigator, and Matt unfortunately picked The Lost Boys, which I am not a fan of that movie. So I'm hoping.
Death by Stereo.
Yes, we're actually recording this on the final day of the month, so the results will actually be up on Patreon for everyone to see in the next day or two. And when I say it's up on Patreon, everyone does get to see that. The results post is not like. You have to be a patron to see that. Right. You can just go to patreon.com/MailFussTV and you can see that. So yeah, I'll put on the little Patreon and Twitter thing just over the top of the logo. So what I'll say, yeah, go to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want to support the channel and the show and everything we do here. You get to vote, of course, at the $5 tier on Overload once a month. You also get to vote on an episode of Streams once a month, an episode of Influx once a month, and then you get some stuff early at the $1 tier. You get 121 and Almost Cancelled Extra, which alternate month to month. You get 1 month. Me and Connor, later tonight, in fact, are going to be doing a whole episode talking about the horror genre and just an in-depth analysis of it for October. So that should be fun. But yeah, so go have a look at Patreon, and you can subscribe on the YouTubes. If you're on iTunes or a podcast app, give us a nice rating on there, 5 stars out of 10, whatever it is. I don't know. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, guys, and we'll see you next time.